We are starting with the audio test. Samsung Galaxy S24 FE and Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. S24 Fan Edition was released last year. Triple camera setup. While the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra was released this year. Quad camera setup with the new 50 megapixel ultra wide sensor. We're also testing the audio eraser, so I hope you hear the difference. I think that's it for the quick audio and portrait video test. Now let's check some portrait shots. Starting with the widest field of view, 1x, you will notice that S25 Ultra is wider than S24 FE. Also in terms of white balance, natural looking on Fan Edition and warmer in S25 Ultra. The face is a little bit smoother on the flagship top of the line. But in terms of contrast and colors, I think both of them are almost the same. I like how they crushes the blacks, maintaining that stronger look. S24 FE loses on the noise reduction on the face. Now on 2x, same tendencies as the ultra-wide, cooler tone on S24 Fan Edition and warmer on S25 Ultra. There's just a little bit of difference on the jacket, stronger contrast on S25s, but outdoors you would hardly notice the difference. They look really similar. One could argue that S24 FE has a warmer skin tone than the competition. In low light condition, you will notice that S25 Ultra is better exposed than Fan Edition, but the jacket is a little bit noisier too. Now on portrait zoom, this is where S24 FE loses on S25 Ultra. It has 4 native focal length. On the zoom, we have 3x and 5x. I honestly love the edge detection on both phones, even individual hair strands. But again, on 5x, the image on S25 Ultra is a little bit dreamy.
3, 2, 1, go on and lose your minds. Woo! Go on and lose it.
Now looking on the selfie portrait, you have wider field of view in S24 Fan Edition, but we got warmer skin tone on S25 Ultra. The level of details and sharpness are almost the same. The skin tone is a little bit warmer on the flagship S25s.
3, 2, 1, go on and lose your minds.
We are starting the video quality test with a selfie video recording. UHD 60 FPS on both phones. So 10 megapixel on S23 Fan Edition or S24 Fan Edition. While we have 12 megapixel on S25 Ultra. In terms of clarity and skin color, I would choose S25 Ultra, but let me know your thoughts. Now we're testing the ultra-wide lens on both phones. This is 12 megapixel sensor on Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition and the new 50 megapixel sensor in S25 Ultra. In terms of clarity and resolution, which phone do you think is better? Now let's check the main sensor. Now we're testing the video quality of the main sensor. In 4K 60 FPS, we can use 60 FPS on both phones because we have 60 FPS on S24 Fan Edition. I think in terms of vlogging, this is the best sensors you can use for video recording. 200 megapixel sensor on S25 Ultra and 50 megapixel sensor on S24 Fan Edition. Now we're testing the 3x optical zoom on both phones. I just noticed on the main sensor earlier, there's a little bit of weird flickering on S24 Fan Edition, but all good. This is 10 megapixel sensor on S25 Ultra and 8 megapixel sensor on S24 Fan Edition. Now let's check the 5x optical zoom. So this is the biggest difference on all the sensors. So on video quality, we have an extra 5x optical zoom on Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, only 3x on S24 Fan Edition. So in terms of video quality, which phone do you think is better? Checking the image outdoors, you will barely notice the difference on these two phones. I think they're almost the same look. I could argue that S24 FE, although a little bit limited, is as good as any other S25 series phones. In terms of details, you got better surface details on S24 Fan Edition, but the out of focus area on S25 Ultra is blurrier. Checking the colors, S25 Ultra crushes the blacks and has a warmer white balance than the competition. Still, they look very similar in terms of image quality.
Like our shoes on the golden ground. And sway in the air.
If we don't do a side-by-side test, I think the only difference is the colors of the reds and the pinks. Maybe a tad colorful on the latest top-of-the-line flagship, and the surface a little bit smoother too.
Can you feel my love? Oh.
And looking at the zoom capabilities, we got ultra-wide main sensor and 3x on both phones, but we have 5x on Galaxy S25 Ultra, also 100 times space zoom. Both phones can shoot slow motion on UHD 120 FPS, but S25 Ultra also has ultra-wide UHD 120 FPS. This is the ported video in Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. We can shoot UHD 30 FPS. And similarly, we have the same 4K 30 FPS video recording ported video on Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. This is the video stabilization test, starting with the selfie video. UHD 60 FPS, the highest frame rate on both phones. So look at the quality of the images. Now let's switch to the rear cameras. Lastly, we're testing the video stabilization in 4K 30 FPS, and we can switch focal lengths on UHD 30 FPS. We're starting with the ultra-wide lens in 4K 30 FPS. This is the video stabilization test. Now we're switching to the main sensor. Look at the exposure and the colors. Video stabilization test. We're also switching to 3x optical zoom on both phones. 10 megapixel versus 8 megapixel. Again, video stabilization. I think in terms of white balance, warmer on S24 Ultra and natural or cooler tone on S24 FE. We also have 5x on the latest top of the line flagship. Again, video stabilization. And in terms of the 4D zoom, we can go 20x on S25 Ultra and only 12x on S24 Fan Edition. Switching back to 1x, which phone do you think is better?
Late night, feels like
Very good night shots on both phones. Galaxy S24 FE looks natural, and on situation with enough light, both phones will perform really good.
it takes me home. Your name pops up on my phone. It might sound stupid, but I could listen.
There's just a little bit of green tint on S24 Fan Edition all throughout this comparison, and better color accuracy on S24 Ultra.
Serotonin to my heart. I wanna let you know that you can call me tonight. Don't need no reason. It's not urgent.
But the biggest difference here is the pitch black condition. You would notice that S25 Ultra is sharper, better exposed, and has more details than S24 FE.
You're my medicine. Something inside.
Good thing about these two Samsung phones, they can shoot on all sensors from the ultra-wide main sensor down to the zoom.
Stories and stupid jokes. Nothing important, but this my soul.
We are starting this low-light video test using the selfie video recording in 4K 60 FPS. So this is a 10 megapixel sensor for Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition and 12 megapixel on Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. I think we have better exposure on S25 Ultra, but let me know what you think. Now we're switching to the rear cameras. Now we're switching to the ultra-wide lens. This is in 4K 30 FPS. We cannot shoot 60 FPS because S24 Ultra can only do 60 FPS using the main sensor. So this is a 12 megapixel sensor on S24 FE and 50 megapixel on S25 Ultra. This is a new sensor for the latest top of the line. Now we're switching to the main sensor. This is in 60 FPS because we can shoot on 60 FPS on S24 Fan Edition. So both phones are in 4K 60 FPS. We have 50 megapixel sensor on S24 Fan Edition and 4 times on S25 Ultra, a 200 megapixel sensor. The sensor is also bigger at 1/1.3 compared to 1/1.57 on S24 FE. Now let's switch to the 3 times optical zoom. Alright, now we're zooming into 3 times optical zoom. Which phone is better in terms of exposure? This is an 8 megapixel sensor for the Fan Edition. And we have a 10 megapixel sensor on S25 Ultra. This is the same sensor on S24 and S23. Now we're switching to 5x optical zoom. Now we're testing the 5 times optical zoom on S25 Ultra and 5 times digital zoom on S24 Fan Edition. This is a 50 megapixel sensor on S25 Ultra. I think it's better compared to S24 Fan Edition. So again, in terms of low light video quality from the selfie, ultra wide main sensor and zoom, which phone do you think is better? We are testing the 8K video recording on Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition. The last generation we only have UHD 60 FPS, so it's good to have 8K video recording on the latest Fan Edition. And we also have 8K video recording on the latest S25 Ultra. I think that's it for the camera comparison video of these two phones. Do you think that S24 Fan Edition can compete with S25 Ultra? Leave your comment down below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.